Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Supernatural Season 9, Episode 11, Firstborn. And this episode was a little bit different than usual. Usually, we have the foursome of Sam, Dean, Cass, and Crowley, but in this episode we kind of switched. We had two teams basically for both plots. You had Dean and Crowley, and then you had Sam and Cass, who really haven't had much interaction, so I did like how they really did that. Which one was stronger? I think both were pretty strong, and I thought this was actually probably my favorite episode of the season. I thought it was a really great one, and I loved really every minute of it. I thought it was really good. So we start off, we see this tortured Dean, this forlorn Dean. He's sitting up to a bar, several empty bottles around. Crowley appears on the neighboring bar stool. Dean immediately goes for his blade, reminding Crowley that he'd said he'd kill him the next time they meet. Crowley manages to calm Dean somewhat, and then make him aware of an episode of John Winchester's hunting history. He asks for Dean's help in seeking the first blade, and Dean, realizing that this may be the one chance at killing Abaddon, reluctantly agrees. So Dean and Crowley, they come upon this girl, Tara, who is this ex-hunter who worked with John Winchester. Now, I really liked her character. She was a pretty badass character, in my opinion. I thought she was a really awesome character. Like, she's definitely, like, a really tough girl. And definitely, like, no, don't mess with her, because she will beat the shit out of you if you mess with her. Really, she will. So, she's an ex-hunter. She's worked with John Winchester to exorcise a Protega Abaddon, and Tara's immediately smitten with Dean, but keenly aware of Crowley. That's what I like about her character. She's a strong character, but she also has that girly side to her, and I like that about her character, because most times when you make, like, tough women, most times they make them, like, lesbians, and I think that's stupid. And this was, I like this about her character. I really liked her character a lot. I thought she was really cool. She reveals that she's chased the blade all over the world, but has only found locations for which she could not find one missing ingredient, essence of crack, and Crowley claims he has a stockpile of it, but that Tara will have to release him from the devil's trap that she's laid in order for him to retrieve it, and so she reluctantly agrees. So after, leaving, Tara, Dean, and the King of Hell, they come upon the location of the first blade. Surprisingly, Crowley, is disgusted at the very sight of the father of the murder. Like, he just is like any time that they make Crowley, like, Crowley's so funny. Crowley is by far the funniest character on the show. He had a really funny, he had some really great one-liners, and there's one really great one-liner that he said, and I'll get to that when we get to that part of the episode, but he was great, in this whole episode. Like, Crowley is slowly becoming my favorite character. I think he's fantastic. Crowley claims he has this stockpile. Oh, we already talked about this. Okay. So, surprisingly, Crowley, as we said, is very excited of Father Cain, who's been living quietly as a beekeeper. And meanwhile, Tara's actually murdered by a demon sent by Abaddon to find the first blade. And the demon then leaves to find Dean and Crowley. And back in the bunker, this is about Sam and Cass. We'll get to that in a second. But Cain is encountered with Dean, Crowley, and a group of demons. He then opens the door for the demons, and he sits back as Dean and Crowley kill the demons with Ruby's knife and the angel blade. And here is where Crowley says the best line of the night: "You're cool, but I'm Crowley." And I love that about it, because it really shows Crowley is not a modest person at all. He thinks of himself as this big, amazing person, and I love that about Crowley. That's why he's such a funny character, because he thinks he's, like, all that, basically, all that in a bag of chips, and he really is. A lot of the time, he really is a hilarious character, and I really like his character. He's really funny to me. So, what happens next is that after the demon slaughter, Dean strikes Cain with Ruby's knife, surprisingly finds out that the father of the murder is invulnerable to the knife, and Cain continues to tell Dean about why he killed Abel in the first place, and I really like this reveal. Basically, Lucifer was attempting to corrupt Abel, and thus trying to turn him into a monster. He agreed to send Abel to heaven if Cain was to take his place in hell. Moreover, Cain was actually the only one who would have to kill Abel. Then he tells Dean about the mark of Cain, which was awarded by Lucifer himself, who asked Cain to train the Knights of Hell and slaughter people. I thought his character was amazing, in my opinion. I thought Cain was such a cool character. Like, he had to murder his wife. Seriously, he had to. And he didn't want to, but she was possessed, so he had to. And it's a lot like, last week where, they had to take the tattoo off of Dean to remove Gadriel, where something comes back with that, in a couple minutes in the episode. So, what happens is, somewhere down the road, Cain meets Colette, falls in love with her. She agrees to marry him if he stops the killing. Cain sets off to finish his duty by killing all the Knights of Hell and almost succeeds except Abaddon, who possesses Colette. And he then gives Dean the Mark of Cain and tells him that the first blade is somewhere in the ocean. He then makes Dean promise to kill him after the latter has killed Abaddon. And Crowley and Dean are then transported to safety. Dean tells Crowley that he knows that the latter set the whole thing up as a trap and vows to go after Crowley after Abaddon. The last part of this episode really intertwines the two storylines, so let's just jump into Sam and Cass. But I really liked their storyline as a whole. I thought it was really cool. I really love the thing with Cain basically being forced to kill his wife because Abaddon possessed her, and it really shows how much of a powerful person Abaddon really is. We really are getting that in this episode. I really enjoyed that. So Sam and Cass, they want to find Gadriel. Their storyline was all about trying to extract Gadriel's grace left behind in Sam. So we probably get probably the funniest scene in the episode, besides the Crowley scenes. Cass had such a funny scene. Cass is eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and Cass explains that he enjoyed peanut butter and jelly when he was human, but that now he is an angel again. They only have the disgusting taste of molecules, and he laments he will miss peanut butter and jelly. Now this is what I love about Supernatural. They make it like this big, intense show, but then you have really silly stuff like this. It's a simple conversation about peanut butter and jelly, but it's hilarious in my opinion, because he really it was a really funny scene. I thought it was probably one of the funniest scenes. No, the funniest scene in the whole episode was definitely this, because he's eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and it tastes like molecules, and it's absolutely hilarious. And this whole episode, in that scene, Sam's just like, what? What are you talking about? Who cares? So Sam and Cass, they discuss the former healing process. Cass agrees. Cass finds some of Gadriel's grace left behind in Sam, and after some research, they discover the man of a letters extractor theory in a seemingly painful process, which they were never able to prove without a guinea pig, basically. So, back at the men of Letters bunker, while extracting the grace from Sam, Cass figures out that the extraction might have regressive effects onto Sam and volunteers to stop. Sam, however, forces Cass to continue since the extraction is the only way of finding Gadriel. So the grace extraction continues, which seems to be killing Sam. Cass suddenly stops and sympathizes with Sam, talking about how he screwed up more than Sam has and how sorry he feels. He heals Sam and the duo leaves with the grace. So, at the very end of the episode, we see Cass and Sam, they're trying to locate Gadriel, but the attempt fails as the grace turned out to be insignificant. Now, what we find out eventually is that Crowley and Cass both want the two brothers to do the same thing. Sam and Cass are preparing a locator spell and pour in the grace they've harvested. The water goes cloudy, and Sam asks if that's it. Cass says there wasn't enough grace and they have to find him another way. And Sam says it's okay and he was right about everything. He hugs Cass, tells him to hug him back. And again, this is just a very simple scene, but it's really funny. Cass does so awkwardly. Cass says Metronon is the key to fixing everything and that he will find him. And Cass said they could use more help to find Gadriel and Metronon, but Sam tells him they can do it. And then after this, we get a very similar scene with Dean and Crowley, because Crowley thinks the same thing. Because Crowley tells Dean that Cain was right and Dean is worthy of the mark, and Crowley asks him if he's getting touchy-feely and tells Dean that no one hates him as much as Dean hates himself. So Crowley says he'll find the blade, bring it to him. Dean says that he saw that Crowley stood back, let him fight in front of Cain. He says that Crowley knew all along what Cain would do and that he knew they were being followed from the get-go. He punches Crowley in the face, tells him that after he kills Abaddon, he's going to kill him. Crowley tells him they're going to need more help to find Abaddon, and Dean tells him to get going. He heads off as Dean looks at the mark on his arm. And that was the end of the episode. Now, what I really like about this episode is kind of like the shift we got here. Normally, Sam is the bad brother and the one that does all the bad stuff, and Dean's the good one, but in this episode it's kind of switched, because Dean now has this mark on his arm, and if you remember, Sam had that same mark on his arm, and Cass was forced to basically remove it off of his arm to get out of Gadriel. So I'm wondering if now Dean might end up being possessed or something like that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where this goes, because I don't think that Mark is a good thing at all. So what do you guys think of this episode? In my opinion, I think it was probably the best episode of the season. I loved every minute of it. I really got into the Kane storyline. I really loved his story. And I'm wondering, where is this Mark gonna go? Why do Sam and Dean not really want to do this? You know, why do they not want the four of them to reunite, basically? What's the reason for that? I think it's also kind of because they both blame, you know, they both feel bad about Kevin's death, basically. So it could be that, like, part of the grieving process. They don't really want to see each other right now. But that's basically it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you guys saw the episode, and I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye!